Welcome to the Hall Hotline. Honest conversations on faith, family, work, and the challenges that shape us. Because just as iron sharpens iron, life sharpens us. Stand firm. Answer the call. Live with purpose.
All right, you ready?
Mic check.
Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hot mic, people, hot mic. We are live. All right, good morning, party people. Coming to you on Thursday. Let's see. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the 9th, July 9th, I think. That sounds right?
Yeah, sure.
So coming to you on Thursday, July 9th. We may record these ahead of time, which is why we're in the same clothes. But if you're listening to the audio, you don't see that anyway. So
Right.
all good there. That's behind the curtains, little Wizard of Odds for you. All right, so today I want to talk about something and pick up. If you've listened all week, you've heard the Couch Conversation episodes. I've got a great friend of mine, Nick, here in the studio. And so in the episodes, we had some great conversation. We talked about motorcycles. We talked about tattoos. We talked about bodybuilding. Got him some brownie points with the wife.
Yes.
But we finished up the last half of our conversation really talking about faith and focusing on our faith journey. And something that Nick has actually taught me a lot about, and I do a lot of thinking and contemplating and all those other synonyms for that word, is surrender. So something that I do not do well is releasing control, right? So we talked about it actually today. I'm a Leo, so my birthday's in a few weeks. He's in a few weeks as well, or in a week here, so he's not a Leo. Not everybody can be perfect, don't worry. But one thing that Leos notoriously have, and astronomy, I know when we're talking about religion and astronomy, something different. But anyway, so I am a Leo, and I have a little bit of control issues. Just, I'm saying little bit. My wife's laughing somewhere when she listens to this, like, oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah, right.
I'm laughing.
So yeah, you know. So I might have some tiny control issues. So fully surrendering. There's a song that I really love it goes, let go and let God.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's Torrin Wells or Chris Tomlin or one of those guys, but let go, let God, fully surrender. So big picture idea, fully surrendering isn't about losing control of your life. It's about placing your life in the hands of the one who loves you most and knows best. And that's the big guy upstairs, right?
Right.
So most of us Christians, hopefully all the Christians, but we want Jesus, our Savior, to save us, but we don't surrender to him as Lord. That's a whole different story, right? And we want God to bless our plans. And Pastor Joby often says, the easiest time to turn to God is when you're at rock bottom, but most of us, when things are going well, aren't really turning and praising. We hit rock bottom. He says when you got a sick kid, everybody's praise. It's, the atheist becomes a praying person with a sick kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so when we want him to bless our plans, we want him to fix our problems, answer our prayers, but fully surrendering is something completely different. You've got to lay it all down. You've got to get rid of your plans, and you've got to say, not my will, your will, Lord. Your will be done. Thy will be done. And so the Christian life really isn't about adding Jesus to our lives. It's about giving him our whole life. And you've heard me say it before, and I think it might have been Joby or Pastor James, somebody that said it first. A lot of people say they want to make Jesus the center of their life. But the different way to look at it is Jesus is the paper that your life is written on. He's not just the center with a bunch of spokes. He's the everything. Everything has to be there. So my question for you, when you hear the phrase fully surrender, what comes to mind? What does that phrase mean to Nick?
Well, I could tell you physically it means dropping down on your knees and throwing your arms up in tears and just giving it to him. But, it just means giving control. You said it best. Get rid of absolute control, pride, ego, everything.
Check it at the door.
Yep.
So why do you think it is so hard for us, whether physically to get on our knees, mentally to let go? Why do we struggle with that?
I just, I mean, us as men, we lived our entire life fixing things, being in control of our problems without Christ. And we think when we have a problem, we can fix it no matter what. That's what we're designed to do, we think.
Yeah. So, is there an area of life that you think is harder for all of us fixers to surrender? Like, what's the
Uh,
hardest thing to let go? What do you think? I mean, I know every person's different, but in general, you know a lot of people, you know a bunch of guys, and what do you think's the hardest thing for us to just surrender?
Pride,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, pride's the original sin, the granddaddy of them all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that I think most Christians do truly struggle with is the pride. But why is that? Why are we so prideful? I mean, and it could be at a base level because evil exists and Satan's in the world and he got cast down because of his pride, right?
Right.
But not blaming everything on him, even though it's all blaming on the one that's to come in here to kill, steal, and destroy. But why do you and I struggle with our pride?
Well, as men, I'm sure you were raised with your father telling you, work hard, get nice things. That's you grew up in a life where it was competition everywhere.
True. Keeping up with the Joneses is a
Yeah.
saying for a meaning, right?
Exactly. You want to work. If you work hard enough, you can have anything you want. But then you see John over here with the nice truck and the four-wheeler in the boat. So you think I got to get that.
For the record, that's a different John. I've got a 2015 Sienna minivan, and I've got no
He does.
four-wheeler and no boat.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. There was a different John, different time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, just constant competition. Men are just raised to be in constant competition, and that develops such a nasty pride within us to not just be like, I don't need none of this. I don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I don't need to live a life that somebody else thinks I need to live.
So that actually transitions great into the next thing I was going to ask you. So continuing with that thought, what does a biblical surrender look like to you? We go deep here on the ha.
Yeah, that's a loaded one. It ultimately boils down to God comes first in everything. As a biblical man, God should come first in your life. Then your marriage should come, or your spouse, or your, whatever you call it. Then your kids, your ministry, and yada yada yada. But being a biblical man, you are not first. You are not head of household. You are not king of anything. God is ultimately king and head of everything.
The word I'm thinking of when you're saying that, yield.
Yeah.
You got to
100%.
yield. You don't have to stop. You got to do the yellow yield sign, right? Just take a knee, let it play out. I mean, one thing we've talked about a lot is we don't know the path, right? We're on step 1 and we need to get to step 50.
Right.
And we've got to trust and yield that we are going to be guided along the right path by the ultimate tour guide, right? For lack of a better analogy, I guess. Yeah. But we're sailing on this boat up this river, and we got to trust the person driving that boat. If we're on this cruise ship and going through life, we have to check ourselves at the door, check our pride, check our eagle. Geez, listen to me. I'm thinking of the 4th of July,
high,
right?
Man.
Flying high, Eagles, baby, go. Well, no, not that. I'm a Cowboys fan. I can't give a shout out to the Eagles. Let me change that. I'm going to edit that out in post-editing. So I've got a couple of Bible verses written down here. I'm just going to read them real quick. So we've got an example of Jesus, the Son of Man, fully surrendering. Luke 22. Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not by my will, but yours be done. Even Jesus yielded. He fully surrendered. With that in mind, your will be done. Why is that so difficult for us? And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but that's something that I struggle with. And I know I want to be better at it. I know I want to fully surrender. I can't sometimes. Why do we struggle with that?
Maybe we don't see the picture. Maybe us by design, we're creatures of habit. Even though we say we trust, we have to see what we're trusting. You have to see the bigger picture, and unfortunately, we're not going to get to step number 50 right away. We can't see step 50 before we get to step 2.
Yeah. That's one of our friend David from our group. He always sends out texts with pictures, and he's got his favorites, but walk by faith, not by sight.
Mhm.
That is something that he's probably texted us a million times,
Oh, yeah.
right? And it is such a good reminder, and that's exactly what you're just talking about. We focus on what we can see, and whether or not we're talking visibly seeing it with our eyes or just knowing what's going to happen, we all struggle because we can't see it, we can't feel it, we can't touch it. One of the things that I've often thought about is people say, why doesn't God come down and do miracles anymore? You read the Old Testament, and God visits Moses, talks to him on the mountain, talks to people on the burning bush. His spirit comes down from heaven when, John baptizes Jesus in the water. And like, why don't we have those signs anymore? You've heard that, I'm sure. It's like,
Yeah.
where's God doing the miracles at? And I struggle with it because I've even myself have said in my own prayers, give me a sign. And I catch myself sometimes I don't, but I'm like, God, show me something so that I know you're listening. And it's almost like I always feel bad about it later because I'm like, I'm questioning it, and
Mhm.
I'm walking by sight, not by faith. What do you think?
Yeah, so people associate miracles with big events. It's a miracle that your body operates the way that it does. Your lungs, your brain, your neurological system, all created by God. The fact that your body is able to do that in itself is a miracle every single day. And we forget just
That's true,
our
man.
existence,
So
just
true.
how perfectly placed this planet was for us to be able to survive and exist is a miracle in itself every day.
It's so true because there's a lot of, there's science. You guys know I've talked about my sister quite often, one of my best friends, and she's probably the smartest book person I know. My sister, my brother-in-law, Nick, super smart people. Common sense, Ashley, maybe not as much. Hope you're not listening to this episode. Sorry, I'm your little brother. Don't kill me. But no, I'm just giving her a hard time. She's a great person, but she's an actual scientist. Like her business card says scientist on it at one point. And she's got PhDs, and I don't even know how many degrees she has in molecular microbiology and DNA and all those things. And
You lost me at degree.
yeah, right, right. So true story. So she's written several books about DNA and science and blood and all this. I have a degree in English. I was a creative writer. That's what I went to school for, and I thought I was going to do journalism and other stuff. And here I am selling houses, and I used to sell toilets. John selling John. So, it didn't happen the way you thought. But reason I bring all that up. Oh, I was going to say a funny story. So the first book she wrote, she asked me to read it and give her some thoughts, maybe like go through it and help her with editing, things like that. I got through the first paragraph and I was like, Ash, I think you're making up words here. Like, I don't think that word had any vowels in it. And I'm pretty sure that's like a rule. And I said, I can't proofread it because I can tell you where a comma and a period go, but the rest of it, I have no idea. But anyway, so DNA, reason I said that, I saw something on like a YouTube reel or something recently, and it was talking about DNA, and I'm going to butcher the facts, so don't kill me, don't shoot the messenger. But there's something like 4 codes, A, D, C, T, or some 4 letters that make up your genetic DNA markers. And there's something like 16,000 or 16 million or some number of those markers in every single cell in your body that has your DNA. And the scientific probability of that perfectly coming together and operating like it does is an incalculable statistic of it happening. Same thing with our world. The tilt of the axis, the spinning, the rotation, the distance from the sun. If those weren't divinely done, the chances of them happening, something coming from nothing has never happened in the history of our recorded science, right? multi-cell major organisms and other science words that describe us coming from a single cell bacteria, amoeba, whatever, a fish coming out of the sea with Darwin's theory and all that, has never happened in our recorded history of science. Nothing does not produce something. Something comes from something, not nothing. And so just to your point, like, there are signs everywhere. And we talk about walking by faith and not by sight, but we open our eyes, we can see the signs. I can look out the window, I can see the sun, the trees. If we didn't have the trees we have and the oxygen level we have, we wouldn't exist. There's just so many different things. We talked about planets this morning in a different way, of course, but there are 8 planets, I think maybe 7 or 8, you might have said.
Yeah, I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah. So we're going to leave it at that. But all the other planets don't have life. And then all of the millions of other planets that have been discovered with the telescopes and Hubble and all those words, they're not like us. If that's not enough of a sight for divine intervention, I don't know what else you're looking for.
Right.
So
some of us even get mad at God when he does show us.
That's deep.
You ever been stuck in traffic on the highway, or somebody may have cut you off and then you got stuck at the red light? That's not always just by chance. Maybe that's God slowing you down a little bit to keep you from getting in an accident down the road.
That has never happened to me, and I have never said a curse word behind the wheel. I am a good Christian. I have read the book of James, and I do not use my mouth in those manners. So I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course not.
So, yeah, I've got a couple other verses here. We're running long on time, so I like to keep the podcast episodes usually to a little shorter. But I wanted to talk about this one is in Luke 9, verse 23. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. So my takeaway from that, following Jesus requires daily surrender. Not one time, not just when you need it, not when somebody's sick. Daily surrender. So what does it mean to you for someone to deny themselves? And what are some of the struggles that we all struggle with laying down?
Right. So that's ironic you say that, because that verse, Mark 8:34, for anyone who comes after me, let him deny himself, pick up his cross and follow me, was the very first season as a couple, me and my wife, that changed my life, really.
Nice.
And I still think back to that on what does it mean. If I had to ask myself back then when I first heard it, what does it mean to do that every day, to now, it'd be completely different. But
interesting.
Every single day, if it were up to me, I would probably have a new motorcycle in my garage. I would have a new boat. I would
have that 4-wheeler like your buddy John.
Yeah, I would be living for this world if I wasn't picking up that mat every single day. But I've realized that living for myself and living for Jesus are two different things. And if I'm gonna follow him,
living for myself or living for Jesus?
Yeah.
That's a good question, man.
Yeah. So in my eyes, I used to live for myself. Now, if I'm going to live for Christ, I need to be more like him, and living my way is not the way. I would be in debt and have things and be upset.
I love that, man. All right. I think, I had a bunch of other examples here and a couple of good verses, but, man, I think we covered it. I'm going to leave you guys with a couple of things if you want to do some homework and check on surrendering and other biblical examples. There's some big ones. So you got Abraham, kind of the OG, right?
Mm.
And he takes his son that he waited 90 years or however old he was to have, right? Isaac. He takes his son up to the mountaintop, to sacrifice him and fully surrender because the Lord told him so. When he gets up there, if you guys don't know the whole story, he ends up not sacrificing him. Spoiler alert, they find a ram in the bushes. God provides. But the fully surrender, I would read that. I would go check out that story. Then Peter, one of the most famous apostles, Peter Simon, he doesn't even question it. God says, drop your nets, come follow me, I'll make you fisher of men. Here you go. Throws his net aside, just whoop, walks out of the boat, and all right, Jesus, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost not even a question. Just like, okay, yeah, cool. then I would say, though, that probably the biggest one. Well, so here I do have a question. Who surrendered more, Mary or Paul, or Saul/Paul, the apostle? So for those of you guys that may not know, so the apostle Paul wrote roughly 60% or so of the New Testament, a lot of his letters, Ephesians, Philippians, Corinthians, all of that. And he was, by all accounts, well regarded, a Pharisee. I mean, think about like a modern day lawyer, judge, jury, executioner. He condemned more Jews to death than probably any man that we have recorded in the Testaments, right? And he had his complete life turned around and fully surrendered to where he went to jail and prison preaching the message of God. So I have that, but then I have Mary. So this is something that I want to ask you what you think. So Mary, she surrendered everything. I am a virgin. You're going to plant a baby in me divinely, and I'm going to raise the Son of God. Like she said, I want to read this verse to you. So I have it because I wanted to get it right. So basically, she wasn't just saying, okay, God, I'm going to have that baby. No, what she said is, I am the Lord's servant. May your word be fulfilled in me. Whatever your plan is, God, I trust you. I am the Lord's servant. Like, to be I believe she was a teenage girl at that time, or, maybe early 20s. I don't know the exact age. But I've often wondered, like, which is fully surrendering? And they're both great examples, of course. But, I mean, it's hard to say who surrendered more. But, gosh, those two were, they surrendered. Right. They surrendered a lot, man.
There's also a big disconnect with obedience as well, because surrendering is obedience, and both are very obedient there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, all right, well, we've reached our limit today for this episode. So, had some other stuff probably read in the future for you, some good stuff here, but I want to finish up with today's challenge. So, for today, I want you to identify one area of your life, just one, baby steps, one axe swing at a time, right? Cutting that tree down. One area of your life that you have not fully surrendered to God. I'm going to give you a few examples for you guys that like to, cheat off the smart kid next to you. Here's your cheat sheet, right? Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it's finances, your future, your career, a relationship. Maybe it's a dream you've been holding on to. Maybe it's a fear that you've been letting control you. Maybe it's a sin that you can't overcome. Or maybe it's a church wound or a parent wound that you haven't let heal. Whatever that might be, here's what I want you to do. Write it down. Write it down on a sheet of paper, on a note card, on an index card, a Post-it note, whatever you want. Write it down. Pray on that. And then I want you to take it. And now, if you don't like fire and you're scared of fire, don't do the next part. Just throw it away. But for the rest of you, take that piece of paper, and I want you to get a lighter, and I want you to light it on fire. And I want you to let that fear or whatever it is, let it go. What do you think, man? Think you can do that?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Write it down. Burn it up. Then I want you to say, Lord, I trust you with this. I am fully surrendering it to you.
Amen.
And give it a go. All right. Trust him enough not to take it back tomorrow. All right, let's try that. That's the challenge today. Closing thought. Fully surrendering is not losing your life. It's placing your life back into the hands of the one that gave it to you. That's all I got. Thank you guys for listening today. Remember, here at the hotline, stand firm, walk humbly with the Lord. Why is that, Nick?
Yes.
Well, that's the hallway. A for effort. B for application.
I can't take your stuff.
All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Make sure to check us out tomorrow. We got Nick in the studio for one last episode. See ya.
See ya.
Thank you for spending time with us today. If this conversation inspired, encouraged, or challenged you, share it with someone who loves Jesus and someone who doesn't. yet. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review. Remember, stand firm in the truth and answer the phone when God calls.